Welcome to highlights of round 11 for our race at Zolder, where there was drama before the race even started, as Sean Bowers spun just before the green flag was shown, but it didn't take him long to catch up to the pack. The car he caught up to was actually his brother Leroy Bowers in his first race of the season. Patterson was the fastest in qualifying, but his game crashed during warm-up, so unfortunately he started at the back. That meant it was Whitlock and Jones on the front row, with Jones getting a good start leading the pack out of turn 1. The drivers were careful to give each other space after the start incident last week. On board with Patterson quickly making up places from the back. He had won the previous race and was confident that he could get to the front again. At the end of lap 2 there was an incident between Gould and Leroy Bowers, as it looked like Gould was just trying to follow the slipstream of the car ahead, but slight contact sent Leroy violently into the wall. Gould waited for Leroy to get underway again, but Leroy's Porsche had suffered so much suspension damage that he'd had to carefully limp back to the pits. There was more drama at the back, as on lap 3 Fucara spun in 17th, losing a couple of positions to Sean Bowers and Gould. Shaw also had a spin, bouncing on the curb, and almost got struck by Wheaton in his first race, as Shaw's car got sideways. Patterson had overtaken several cars and was up to 9th, going wheel to wheel with Dan Shaden's impressive charge up the pack. But there was contact between the two, fortunately with no harm being done, and Patterson was up to 8th. He had underfueled the car, so he had good pace and took his mandatory pit stop early. The strategy worked out as he exited the pits with clear track ahead and was all the way up to 4th when the other drivers took their pit stops. Leroy Bowers had a close call on lap 8, spinning on the curb on the exit of turn 1, hitting the barrier, but fortunately not picking up any suspension damage this time around, although he was having a bad race as he had a third crash later on. Jones was slowly building a gap to the cars behind, and by lap 11 was leading by 5 seconds ahead of Whitlock. He only had one podium result so far, finishing second at Paul Ricard, so he was looking good, potentially on the way to his first race win of the season. Wheaton in his first race had some very bad luck. He had just taken his mandatory pit stop on lap 17, which didn't go well, so he lost some time, and then only a lap later picked up a front left puncture, so he was straight back into the pits. Also on lap 18, Polo was another driver to spin on these tricky curbs at Zolder, crashing into the wall, and took his mandatory pit stop on that lap. He was running in 7th and ended up 12th after the pit stops. Sean Bowers had some bad luck, being given an automatic stop and go penalty as he exited the pits, so I assume that was for breaking the pit speed limit. And the same thing happened to Fucara. On board with Friesen for one of the highlights in the middle of the pack, as Panda ahead had made a little dive on Wolf, which gave Portis the opportunity to get alongside, and just managed to keep 2 wheels on track to overtake Wolf, with Friesen almost doing the same thing, but later appeared to back out for safety. Friesen safely got through a bit later on, but Portis ended up off track, spun, and crashed into the wall, losing 3 positions. Fortunately his car seemed okay, and he finished the race without needing an extra pit stop. Right at the end, Collis was given an automatic drive-through penalty, I assume for exceeding track limits, but the race would be over before he'd be able to complete it. Polo had recovered a couple of positions towards the end, including this overtake on Portis. Jones had a 15-second lead over Whitlock by the end, and was coasting into the braking zones. Whether there was a fuel-saving issue or some brake trouble I don't know, but he'd remained fast and consistent over the 41 laps, overlapping most of the field, taking his first win of the season, and also setting the fastest lap. Tim Shade and Polo were overlapped and battling for 9th just behind him. His win moves him up 2 places from 8th in the standings. Whitlock had been under pressure from Walker for the entire race, with Walker being very close towards the end, but Whitlock had held on to 2nd, extending his championship lead, with a very good result against his championship rivals. Patterson in his second race impressed again, recovering to 4th from the back, and Wolf got his best result in 7th, breaking into the top 10 for the first time. With a maximum of 208 points left, only the top 6 drivers were capable of being champion. Anything can happen in the team standings, with results that could have gone better for Bentley and Shade Bros, and the teams potentially able to earn 368 points before the end. So next up will be the Nürburgring, where we'll be doing highlights again, so we hope to see you then.